Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Golf Rules Questions podcast. My name is Roscoe, your co-host, sitting opposite me virtually in front of a new background. We'll get up to the importance of our backgrounds in a minute. But Blakey, how are you? Thanks for joining us again. Well, thanks for coming back to your own podcast, mate. It's going really well. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah, no worries, Roscoe. I mean, can we do this without either of us? Probably, I might be, slightly more important, but really you're the nuts and bolts behind this operation.
As I do, I just press buttons and make sure that they're red and not green and recording something. And that's it, my important part. But, mate, it's been, a week or so since we caught up and did our last episode, and quite a bit of stuff to get through. We will try and keep it neat and to the schedule, and it's a wonderful schedule that you've put together for us too. I couldn't be here without your wonderful schedule here, mate. It's been a couple of big weeks in golf.
Yeah, there have been some good fodder for us in terms of rules stuff. Yeah, I've tried to keep it to cut it down from what we've done previously, just based on that feedback, which we love, the listener feedback or viewer feedback if you're on YouTube with the vlog. But we'll try and get through everything today, and if we don't, we'll put it in the next episode and make sure we speak about it. So let's get into it, Roscoe.
So, mate, we're down to the pointy end of the FedEx series, and the last event was run, and the last event of the main FedEx series, and next week's the final, was run and won today. What a finish!
Yeah, that was unbelievable, and it is August, and this is when the FedEx Cup is usually on, but with the lack of golf that we've had especially the PGA Tour this year, it's quite incredible that it's come so quickly, I guess. So yeah, what a finish. Jon Rahm ending up shooting 130 on the weekend as a past 70 course, but shooting 130 on the weekend to get into that playoff. And do you see both putts, Roscoe?
I did, and I don't think that I've, even in my wildest dreams, considered holding putts of those lengths of those two young men, Dustin Johnson and Jon Rahm, as they did. One to secure his place in the playoff, Dustin Johnson, and the other one to take it out in the first playoff hole. Just phenomenal meterage of puttage.
And, the funny thing about it is that Dustin's putt for birdie in the playoff was actually not too far away either. So, what we saw, Colin Morikawa and Justin Thomas a few weeks ago when they had the playoff putts, it just keeps getting better and better on the PGA Tour for that kind of stuff.
Before we get into talking about the first little rules, imbroglio, you like that word? I'm going to keep running with it. Imbroglio, spelled with an I, not an E, as I. And you, as is your role in this team, politely but effectively corrected me on my spelling, which I usually actually pride myself on, by the way, for everyone listening.
That's all right.
Before we get into that, Olympia Fields, it was turned out fairly tough, and this is probably more a topic for my mate Rocket on the My Love of Golf podcast, but it was turned out fairly tough. And I just was keen to get your perception or how you thought it presented. And is that a good thing for the professional game? Because it seems to be, if you look at the Twitter spheres, a lot of banter to and fro with the pro long rough and narrow fairways, or the firm and fast and wide, and let strategy, be the domain of the better player.
Yeah, like I personally enjoy it more watching when they can't spin their golf ball out of the rough, when they are having these really long putts, just hitting it in there, letting it stop really quickly with like 6 and 7 irons. That's something that we'll never be able to do. Speaking of myself. So I like seeing that they have to tactfully work their way around the course and put the ball in certain positions to then have a better position to hit into the putting green. And then, you know, if they do hit it just off the fairway, they have to take their medicine and just try and aim for the middle of the green. And then even then, that's not the most easy thing to see. But, you know, they set it up really hard. But again, it was a par 70. The 2 par 5s were over 600 yards. But, you know, the cream rose to the top. John Rahm, yeah, as I said, shooting 130 on the weekend. So obviously, you know, these are the best in the world. Or obviously, they might have made it a little bit easier on the weekend or something.
Well, and you know, the cream rises to the top. Obviously, DJ in that runner-up position, winning last week as well. He's on fire, that man. So, yeah. Well, very interesting. I like the firm greens. I'm still not a massive fan of long, rough, narrow fairways. I do like a bit of width there and a little bit of strategy, but the firm greens, I think, is something that brought a lot of these guys a few challenges with the pace of the putts and not being able to spin their wedges and get it to stop on a dime like they used to. And I think, you know, for us here in Melbourne, not that we know at the moment because we haven't played golf for 6 weeks, but you know, we like that, and we sort of get into that sort of firm and fast, you know, that Royal Melbourne and Metro type firm and fast green. But anyway, now our winner, John Rahm, had an imbroglio that he had to deal with on the weekend in getting to the win position as well, and he's not unfamiliar to take the win, but also having a sort of green side penalty, because he had one fairly recently, which we talked about in episode 1 of the Golf Rules Questions podcast. And thanks once again for listening. Let's cue that audio up and have a listen to that.
Which was incurred on the 5th hole. And afterwards, John Rahm described it. He said, "I just spaced it. He had not marked his ball. He just picks it up. Then he realizes what he's done." He says, I went up there, I thought I'd marked it, and I didn't. He realized it right away, and he knew what was coming. The official comes up. You know, he gets assessed the 1-shot penalty.
If you manage a team, you should be using Monday Doc.
Yeah, if you manage a team, once again, that's taken from your not your web, sorry. It is taken from the web, but it's taken from your YouTube site, which I encourage everyone to go on if you want to keep up with Blakey's categorized and how would you say it? You know, fully diarized YouTube videos on golf rules questions. Go to there. But yeah, a monumental brain fade from the big Rambo.
Yeah, quite an interesting situation here. So basically, his ball's on the green. He's probably twiddling around with his ball marker in his pocket, and instead of actually putting it down on the green and then picking up his ball, which is what you have to do under Rule 14.1, he has just picked the ball up without putting a mark down. So whereas Rule 9.4 talks about accidental or deliberate movement of the ball at rest, you know, if you cause your ball to move, basically you get a penalty unless it's under one of these exceptions. There's 4 exceptions. One of those exceptions, exception number 3, is about accidentally moving your ball on the green. So a lot of people would say, oh, you know, it was accidental. Well, it was an accident, but it was still a deliberate action, and Rule 14.1 talks about that action as if you lift your ball without first marking it on the putting green, you're going to get that 1-stroke penalty. So sort of 14.1, 9.4, both would penalise you in that situation. And luckily, he didn't, it didn't cost him the tournament. It would have been very interesting to hear, you know, the media outlets around the world about after that, if it did. But he sunk a 66-foot putt and ended up winning the tournament. You know, did he even have to? He didn't even have to be in the playoff. But there's other situations. I think, you know, his ball bounced out of the hazard penalty area on 15. So, you know, he got lucky there. So it comes and goes with the game of golf as we all love it.
That is golf, and that's why we love it. And that's one of the little things that keeps us coming back week in, week out. Yeah, it was just to watch that vision and to see it happen. It was just a brain fade and somewhat encouraging. It was disappointing to see him do it in the time, but it's somewhat encouraging that we're not the only ones that sometimes, can have a brain fade on under pressure. But it was interesting to see. But
yeah, you might find this quite funny, but it actually, I know of another situation, another time that this situation occurred as well. At the Vic Open last year, on hole 17, Jason Scrivener of the beach course, Jason Scrivener did the exact same situation. I think his situation, he'd actually moved it to the side, and so he'd put the marker down, pick the ball up, put the marker, club head to the side, because someone was putting that way, and then pick the marker up. So a same penalty, 1 stroke penalty, and just replace the ball or the ball marker in the correct spot.
Now, of course, the ball moving on the green, now it's a different rule to what we've just articulated there, but the ball moving on the green was amongst the set of rules that changed. Was that back in 2019 as well? So once again, comparing the old with the new, when I was down there battling it out for the monthly medal at Mornington Golf Club, where there's a lot of slope on the greens and also the fairways, but there were quite a number of greens down there with a heavy slope. And in a windy day, you could be standing there waiting for your ball to move and just trying to guesstimate when you were going to hit the ball between oscillations, of the ball being blown by the wind. Now, that rule changed. So that was the old rule where, if you were deemed to have anyway caused your ball to move on the putting surface, and that's not through marking it, but you've got your ball in play waiting to putt, you had to hover your putt, therefore you weren't addressing the ball technically. But now, what's the scenario now when you've got a windy condition and you're still playing and the ball moves or the ball's oscillating? What's the go there?
Yeah, it's quite interesting that you bring that up, Roscoe, because in the last 10 years, this rule has changed quite a lot. They used to have a definition called addressing the ball. They've taken that out of the rule now, but out of the rule book now. But it used to be that even if you just grounded your club and the ball moved, whether it was at your doing or not, 1 stroke penalty replaced the ball. So they've got rid of the definition of addressing the ball. And now we've evolved into this situation where if you are on the putting green and your ball moves, you work out what caused it to move. And if it was natural forces, wind or water, then there's no penalty. And if you hadn't already marked it and lifted it and replaced it, then you play it from its new position. If you had already lifted and replaced it, you play it from that position. That is the position that you need to make the stroke from. So just probably easier just to give an example here. You hit your ball up, you hit your 20-foot putt up to a tap-in position. And as you're walking up, the ball's at rest. As you're walking up, the ball starts moving and blows into a bunker. Your next position that you're going to play that stroke from is in the bunker, unless you want to take an unplayable or something like that, right? Now, same situation, you hit the 20-foot putt, you've got to tap in. For some reason, you decide that you're going to mark it. You mark it, you lift it, you clean it, you replace it. Now the wind does the same thing, blows it into the bunker. You get to replace it back to that spot, that original spot from where you'd already marked and lifted and replaced it, and there'd be no penalty. So that was a change after we saw the Billy Horschel in the Masters on the 15th hole in 2015, I think it was. They sort of said, we've got to do something about that because, the conditions of the greens, they're so smooth these days. They're cut so neatly, and it doesn't take much for wind or water to move that ball. So, that was a change that has occurred 2019, but that rule has really been changing the last 10 years. I mean, it used to be, they took away the addressing, but even if you're just sort of around the ball, it was more likely than not that you caused it to move, you're going to incur the penalty. Whereas now it's more likely than not that you didn't cause the ball to move. You have to be virtually certain. You have to be at least 95% certain that you caused the ball to move in order for there to be a penalty. And we're talking fairway or rough, whereas on the green, if it's accidental by you, then there's no penalty and you just replace it. In the case of John, it was a deliberate action, even though it was an accident. It was a deliberate action to pick his ball up without first marking it, and that's a one-stroke penalty.
Very well explained, very well explained. And, I'm sure that's not the last time that we'll see John Rahm with the rules imbroglio at the top end of the tournament. I'm sure there's been 2 in the last few months, so I'm sure there'll be more.
Yeah, well, they say comes in threes, doesn't it? So, and that kind of stuff follows Phil Mickelson around as well. So, when you're at the top, when you got the cameras on you, that kind of stuff always happens.
Well, Phil just loves a bit of controversy in ways, shapes and forms, and he creates it out of his own interest, but this time he created it to his own benefit. Now, Phil's made the transition not sure for how long, but I didn't think he would jump straight across there, but he's jumped into the Champions Tour, and he was involved in this little rules scenario that you can explain to us after we have a listen to it.
Lefty, he's up against the tree, but he gets relief.
Not because this part down the bottom here.
So Lanny, then he gets relief. We'll get into why he got relief in a second. He hits his driver from the pine straw there,
which in itself was an outstanding play.
It was an outstanding play, the driver from the pine straw. But what the viewers who are listening, no one can see it because it's on your YouTube channel. But what you can't see is Phil's up against the tree. He's a lefty, so his back is to the tree and his ball's up in the buttress of the tree with all the roots, and it looks fairly gnarly down there. And then all of a sudden he gets free relief. Now, I didn't really explain it there, and you couldn't really see clearly why. But Blakey, of course, you've got all the information. So why did Phil, the lefty, couldn't play the shot, was stymied well and truly? How did he get relief from the base of a tree?
Yeah, this is a common situation. Firstly, Roscoe, in terms of my YouTube videos, I try and get the best footage I can, but sometimes, of these rulings, but sometimes it just, isn't possible. But what I sort of cut together there was the fact that we saw his ball was basically dead. It was up against a tree. Whether it was a reasonable stroke or not is another question. But these guys are the best in the world. So telling Phil that he doesn't have a stroke at the ball, is like telling Michael Schumacher he can't drive a car type thing. So
probably not the best example.
Well, that didn't happen in a car race.
No.
That was on, on skis. But anyway, moving on. So he does have a shot, whether it's a reasonable one, straight into a tree, or that's for the referee to decide. But basically, on a lot of these tours, they'll have this local rule for cables or wires attached to trees, and they're wrapped around trees very tightly, and they don't give free relief. They make them integral objects. Otherwise, people would just be trying to get free relief for any time they have interference with a tree. It's not the wire that they actually care about, it's the tree. In this case, it wasn't actually TV cables, but the local rule still applies to any wires wrapped around a tree. And I've never seen this, but obviously it's a big thing in the States to have wire that is lightning wire, right? So, the lightning hits the wire and goes down the wire and into the ground rather than smashing the tree and destroying the tree.
I think in the electrical field, it'd be called an earth.
Correct, right? So this lightning wire apparently had come loose, but not loose where you could move it. Loose as in it was interfering abnormal to what the wrapped around the tree would be. So then it's not a movable obstruction because he couldn't actually rip it away from the tree. So it's an immovable obstruction, and the referee was, and Phil as well was right to get relief, provided it was a reasonable stroke, and they obviously thought it was. And that's a really big, that would have been huge if Phil hadn't dominated the tournament so much. That would have been sort of huge news everywhere else. But, going back to, I'm here to commentate on the rules, but it was interesting to see that Phil had taken that opportunity to play on the tours, the Champions Tour, and he had missed out on the main FedEx rotor, or missed out on the top 70 or whatever it was. So that's why he was down there, and he dominated, which was, he's like, there was a 340 meter, 40-yard par 4, and he hit it on the green and won. And then he's 50 years old. Can you do that, Ross?
If I get into Phil's, Nick, and do my Phil Carve Kwando a little bit harder, in the what's left of lockdown, I reckon I can give it a rip. But we'll see. We'll see. You can test me on that. Just a little shout out to Dave McKenzie as well. I don't actually know where he finished because I don't have the results at hand. But when I was watching the Champions Tour the other night, I could see Dave McKenzie up there on the front page of the leaderboard, and what a great ambassador for Australian golf out there on a major tour, doing some great stuff, and has been doing for a number of years now. Just I was going to say plods away. That would sound terrible, but he just beavers away and plays some really good golf, and is always very likely to be up the pointy end of those fields. So a win for him, probably not too far away. But it's just good to see Dave McKenzie up there playing with some of the elder statesmen of the tour from years and years gone by. It was great to see for me. Hey, now, another one that happened a couple of weeks ago in Scotland, and maybe this is an appropriate time to introduce. Should we talk about? Because it was here. So the background bingo, which is going to be part of our ongoing programming, background bingo. You can see, for those watching on the YouTube, you can see our backgrounds today. There's a new background for you to have a look of. I'll move around for those looking at the video. Seaside course, wonderful course, old course, one of my favourites. So if you've listened anywhere else, you'll know that this is one of my favourites. Blakey, you're sitting in front of the only hint's going to be same hemisphere. And that's a harder one for me to pick because it's in tournament setup. I actually can't see what course it is. I can't work it out, but I'm sure that some astute listeners will be able to work out where your background is. So have a go at both backgrounds. We did have a winner from last week's background bingo. It was a pretty easy one. Who was it?
It was Jerry Bauer.
Jerry, congratulations. You picked Troon as the background. Yes, it was a picture from the 2016 Troon Open. I think it was the 18th. And what a tournament. It was the first ever major that I'd ever been to, the only major I've ever been to, and what a great one to go because, we were just talking about him, Phil Mickelson and Henrik Stenson put down one of the all-time great finishes to a tournament. And for me, it was just unbelievable introduction to live to open tournament golf in Scotland at Royal Troon, which was the place where this young lady, Lexi Thompson, had another little rules imbroglio. And I would define this as imbroglio. If you look at the word imbroglio and what it means, this was an imbroglio and caused a bit of a stir. So should we listen to that first, Blakey?
Yeah, let's go for it, Roscoe.
Okay.
Obviously, as you approach the screen, the left-hand side is favourable, but it's very well defended by a selection of 5 bunkers, 3 on the right, 2 on the left.
There seems to be a big tuft of grass just behind it. She's brushing it at the moment with a club.
think that's the problem. You know, she's wondering if she can get a clean strike. She's got a very wide stance, trying to remain stable. Really chasing after it with her body.
Well, yes, Iona, she was really chasing after it with the body. Now, I have to commend the guys who are doing the commentary for the Women's Open, which I watched a lot of at Raw Troon. You know, I was obviously sitting there late at night reminiscing. And the guys did a great job with limited cameras and limited, you know, everything in the current environment. They had Iona Stephen, who, you know, is just a class young lady in herself, a very, you know, talented golfer and becoming a great broadcaster. They had Dame Laura Davies, who was just great in the commentary box. You know, obviously she could do whatever she wants, but if she would just turned her hand to commentary now, you know, that'd be great on men's and women's tours. And they did a great job rotating everything. But I think they sort of let that go a little bit too easy. And what they let go, you know, for those of you haven't seen it, go and check it out once again on the YouTube site. But is Lexi Thompson, who most of us love. You know, she's an icon of the women's game and done a wonderful things. You know, I saw her play at the Solheim Cup last year, and she's just an impressive young lady in every athletic and golfing sense. Impressive golfer, wonderful record. But to watch her push the grass away, you know, a wispy knoll of grass behind a ball, to me looked like she was trying to improve a lie. I couldn't see any other way around it. I'm probably being a little harsh. There's been a bit of toing and froing. But the commentators didn't call it out. They didn't really stick to, you know, Iona just go, oh, she looks like she's got a little bit of, you know. That's how I saw it, Blakey. What happened?
Yeah, well, you know, we talk about the principles, the two main principles of the rules of golf, or just the game of golf. Play the course as you find it, and play the ball as it lies. And that means not trying to improve your lie through pressing something down around your ball or breaking branches, etc. that is going to help you make the stroke. You basically just have to get to a position and go, okay, what have I got in front of me, and just accept it and try and make the best shot that you can. With Lexi, her ball was right beside a tuft of grass, and so she's just started prodding at it with the club, trying to move it out of the way, which is basically a no-no. Okay, now sort of 2 years ago, that probably would have been a penalty. However, there's a definition about that's really important here, and that's improve. The word improve. So if you do an action that affects your conditions, so that's your lie, the area of in swing or your stance, it also has to improve your conditions for you to incur a penalty. Now, with the update from 2019, they also brought in the fact that you could, in some circumstances, restore any or eliminate any improvement. So that is to restore the conditions by eliminating any improvement that you might have done to avoid the penalty. And that is what happened here, but not of her own doing. It was so lucky that it was windy. So she sort of prodded the grass away, and you can check it out on the Instagram video. And she sort of prodded the grass away, and then the wind's blown it back into the same position, or what the RNA who were running the tournament, what they thought was into the same position, meaning that the improvement or any improvement had been eliminated by the restoration before she made the stroke at the ball. And this restoration was done by the wind. It wasn't done by her going, oh, what am I doing? So she was very lucky there, I would say.
Yes, no, it was a strange one for me to see and then to hear the adjudication on. But anyway, it is what it is. There's a whole group of talented people, and your colleagues over there, I guess, adjudicated on that, and that's what they did. So we accept that and move on. But it wasn't a great look. Anyway, it's what it is.
Yeah.
Don't do it. My advice, so this is not an advice giving, but, if you're a regular club golfer, it's best not to go prodding around at the grass to try and get a better look, swing, shot, more access to your ball. You see it happen. It's one of the things that you see out there on the course that, probably people are a little unawares of, but, you've just got to basically, get your club as well as you can behind it and then make your action from there. And once you go sort of moving things around and prodding bits of grass, it becomes a questionable action. So just, take that for what it is. But, interesting one. So
well, I mean, you're totally right. And that's what we're here to do. We're sort of here to tell the rules, but also, tell our story about the spirit of the game. And if your ball comes into a terrible lie, that's what you've got to deal with. That is the nature of golf. It's a test of character before it's a test of skill. So, don't go blaming anyone else for how your ball is, even if it's in a unrepaired divot. Yeah, it sucks, but don't go blaming anyone else. Accept what you've got and try and play the game the way it's meant to be played.
Well said. Well said. Now, the last one that we've got on the run sheet here, Blakey, was an interesting one. And it was the player was Scotty Scheffler, correct?
Yeah, it was Scotty Scheffler, who shot 59 the other day.
Another one of Rocket's, heroes and young guns. So let's have a look there. So what should we do? Should we play the Instagram first?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that look like cramp?
Yeah, that looks pretty serious. I don't think he's going anywhere in a hurry.
Okay.
Not a lot of folks out here that can just come in from behind the ropes and fill in here, Nick.
Good.
It's empty.
Yeah.
Yeah. Louis caddy.
It's out what they can do.
Yeah. There you go, Mark. Take the pack off and grab the bag.
No, thank you.
That's Phil Lowe, Louis caddy coming over at least to help move the bag up to the green side.
So there you go. Well, the world's best commentating on a medical situation in the golf there with Nick Fowler just offering some immediate advice that it looks like a calf from the commentary box. I thought that was pretty impressive. And IBF there also chiming in. World's best just watching the young man go down, the caddy of Scotty Scheffler go down. What happened?
Yeah, so the caddy took an injury, took a medical timeout. No, he was down for the count. Basically, they carted him off, and he couldn't caddy for the rest of the round. And I don't know if he didn't follow up with whether he got back out there for rounds 3 or 4 or whatever it was, or he's back on the bag this week or whatnot. So hopefully he is okay, and he just got some quick medical attention and was right for the next day. But it just brings up the issue of how many caddies you can have. I mean, for mere mortals like you and me, we're just going to be pulling out or carrying our own golf bag. But the tour, it's very common to see these teams, a player and a caddy, and it's important to know that a caddy is basically the same as a player in terms of their responsibilities for knowing the rules, and the fact that if they do breach a rule, the player will incur that penalty. So we might talk about caddies in another episode, just a bit more on that stuff. But just in terms of this specific situation, I'm not going to call it in imbroglio. A player can have only one caddy at a time, and so the fact that the caddy's gone down and then the other caddy from the other player has actually moved Scotty's bag up to the green, and I think they in the end, they ended up getting someone else to come out and caddy. It might have been Scotty's manager or something like that. But basically, that moving of the bag up to the green in that situation would just be seen as a courtesy. It's something similar. Another example of this happening would be if say you had a caddy and I had a caddy and we were playing in at Mornington or something like that, and I hit my ball into a bunker, I hit it out of a bunker, and my caddy decides to rake the bunker, and then but I'm on the green, so you or your caddy takes both bags, your bag and my bag, up to the green so I can get the putter out, clean the ball and stuff, and I mark my ball, I throw it to your caddy and he cleans my ball and stuff like that. So he's not acting for me as my caddy. He's simply a courtesy to substitute in for my current caddy who's raking the bunker back down the fairway. So there are times when that's not going to be a breach of the rules. If I did have two caddies, so one carrying my bag and then another one giving me advice, then that would be a breach of the rules, which is a general penalty for each hole that it happens. So if you have two caddies for 18 holes in stroke play, how many penalty strokes is that, Roscoe?
Sorry, say that again.
If you have two caddies for a whole 18 holes in stroke play, how many penalty strokes in stroke play would that be? No,
I heard you the first time, but two caddies head around two caddies for the whole 18 holes, and I just can't. I'm not the numbers guy here, mate, but there's probably I'm going to be wrong. Two shots for every hole, the maximum of however many holes you played.
So 18 times 2, 36. And it has happened. So it used to be, this is one that I got caught out on the other day. There used to be a maximum on this, but there's no maximum on this one. So actually, I'm just going to look at the book just to check that. But, there's no maximum on this one. So, it'll be 36 penalty strokes.
While I was slightly distracted there, I wasn't distracted. I was trying to work out, never ever seen anything that was the like of two caddies. But the only caddy breach that I can think of was not one of a golfing strokes, affecting the round, but more of a, my tight Scottish nature background. And it was at the Lynch in Ireland. And Aussies are notorious for not taking caddies at a lot of these places around the world where, maybe some of the guys from America that might be listening, and if you are listening from some of the states that tune in, welcome. But caddy is very popular with the American travelling golf market in Scotland and Ireland. Ross, no caddy. Just take it. I might spend my 15 quid on a stroke saver, which I did that day at Lahinch. Anyway, I struck up a great relationship with the caddy, with the two guys from America that I was playing with, the two older gentlemen from America. They had one caddy between two. I was having great banter with this Irish fellow. It was just unbelievable. And I was conscious of the fact that I didn't want to ask him for information because I wasn't paying his fee and I had, probably no intention. But his wife was from Australia and there was all this stuff going on. He started giving me information. It's about a 7-iron from there, Ross. Oh, thanks very much, mate. Well, the two playing partners, they were just filthed up big style. They just went ballistic. Not quite ballistic, but they made it very clear that they were paying for his services and I wasn't, so bugger off over the other side of the fairway. I was just trying to be sociable. Anyway.
That's quite a good a little segment just before we finish, or a good little situation just before we finish. You can actually have one caddy, between 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 players. Not that you ever have 5 or 6 players, but you can have one caddy for more than one player. You just can't have one player for more than one caddy. So,
well, when you go on your golfing trips over to these parts, and hopefully one day we all get back to doing that, it's quite common over there to have one player between two, one caddy between two, all caddies and all that sort of thing. So, these boys, pushing 2 trolleys or carrying 2 bags.
Yeah.
But my mates at the Real Life Caddy podcast have got some wonderful caddy stories. 2 guys that caddy over at Pebble Beach, and go and check out their podcast. But funny guys, and they agree with me that Gordon, who runs the Real Life Caddy podcast, he says one day to me, he says, you know, Ross, you know how copper was invented? I said, how is that, Gordon? He says, 2 Aussies fighting over a penny. Sorry, and I've stuffed that up. Copper wire. How copper wire was invented. 2 Aussies fighting over a penny. So he was basically agreeing that us Aussies are tight. Maybe not all, but anyway. Hey, I think that's a good episode, mate. So you've covered off some real doozies there. Covered off the latest information from the tour. Some things that were maybe not so clear of why they did and didn't happen. That people may have been tuning into. Once again, jump on the podcast. Jump on the Instagram, jump over to the YouTube site, Golf Rules Questions. You can see it everywhere. And all that information is there. Hours and hours and hours of viewing pleasure in lockdown. Let me tell you that. Blakey, how are you? All good?
Yeah, no, going really well. Again, we've run over time, but we'll chuck it in the next episode so people can hear more about rules from the tour and also listeners' questions.
All right, we do have a question to cover too. Yes, that's right. Background bingo. So you can see here we've done that. And who is our winner again?
Jerry Bauer.
Jerry, you're in the draw. You are officially in the draw to win something, the first bit of something that the Golf Rules Questions podcast can create. You are in the draw to win it. So everyone that answers the background bingo from the YouTube, you go in the draw to win something. That's the next part. We'll work out what something is, but you're in the draw. Everyone, thanks for listening in. It's been great. We're trying to have some fun here and levitate, this great information that Blake is able to bring to us. Thanks for listening, and until next time on the Golf Rules Questions podcast, we'll see you again.